Here comes Lewis on the outside. Carl Lewis wins the gold.
While Carl Lewis was sprinting for his first Olympic gold medal, two colleagues from Nike were having a beer, watching Lewis on television in a Washington, D.C. restaurant. "There's one hero," said one of them, nodding toward the television. "I think we're about to get together with a much bigger one." The colleagues left the bar for a meeting at the office of sports agent David Falk. Rob Strasser, Nike's director of marketing, and designer Peter Moore represented the ambitious sportswear company from Oregon. Falk represented a University of North Carolina basketball star who had decided to skip his senior year of college and enter the NBA draft. This is the story of that meeting and how it changed the sports industry forever. The 80s didn't start well for Nike. After the company went public, Nike posted its first losing quarter ever, and Wall Street hammered the share price down to single digits. The company had to dump millions of shoes for as little as $1 per pair to stay alive. Workers were laid off in what became known around Nike as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Nike founder Phil Knight was desperately looking for ways out of the crisis. He was in particular counting on his marketing director Rob Strasser, who Knight called his five-star general and was known to be a deal-making wizard. He just didn't care what he said, or how he said it, or how it went over, Knight recalls in his memoir. He was totally honest, a radical tactic in any negotiation. Rob Strasser grew up in Milwaukee, got his law degree at Berkeley, and returned to Portland to work for a local law firm. After fighting off a dispute with a Japanese manufacturer who was suing Nike, Phil Knight hired him to work for his company. Although successful in his ways, Strasser earned a reputation as someone who could underscore a point by throwing a book across a room. With 300 pounds, a full-grown beard, and wearing a Hawaii shirt most of the time, that could leave quite an impression. Strasser presented another example of his eccentric approach at a meeting with the All England Lawn Tennis Club to make them sign with Nike as the official Wimbledon outfitter. For his pitch, Strasser printed out large black and white pictures of Wimbledon's courts after they had been bombed by the Nazis. The tagline, "Brought to you by the people who wear 3 stripes." A bald-face reference to Nike's German competitor adidas. The tactic was classic Strasser, for its noise but also its precision. One of the club officials listening to the pitch was a decorated World War II veteran, and Strasser knew it. 3 years before that meeting, Strasser had been in Wimbledon to watch John McEnroe's iconic performance that illustrated how well a superstar-driven strategy can work.
You cannot be serious!
Now Strasser wanted to make sports heroes a cornerstone of the business, to lead Nike out of the crisis. Perhaps more than anyone, Strasser believed in star power. In a 1983 memo he wrote, "Individual athletes, even more than teams, will be the heroes. Symbols more and more of what real people can't do anymore, risk and win." A visionary thought for the time, which later proved to be right. While Nike was making cuts everywhere and trying to get out of sponsorship agreements with players, Strasser was planning to create an icon to save the company. "We're going to Washington today to negotiate for Michael Jordan," he told colleagues the day before meeting with Falk. "We're going to create shoes, advertising, and whatever else goes with him. If Jordan does what we think he can, and if we can execute, this can be big." A huge if, but success would put Nike that much closer to achieving its grand plan: to dethrone adidas and become the world's dominant athletic brand. Jordan's agent David Falk was clear. If Nike wanted Michael Jordan, he needed his own signature line of shoes and apparel, upfront advertising support, and a cut of future sales. All this was essentially unheard of and a high risk. A stunning deal for a rookie in a team sport, just one knee injury away from disaster. But Strasser and Moore agreed. Jordan would become the first player in basketball with his own brand. Adidas and Converse would later tell Falk it would never work. The men went on to discuss potential names for the signature line, luckily ditching ideas like the Michael Jordan line, and agreed on Air Jordan. On the flight back to Portland, Moore asked a flight attendant for a set of wings, the kind airlines give kids. That little pin became the inspiration for a logo featuring the words Air Jordan arced over a basketball set between two wings. That same week, the US team led by Jordan beat Spain in the US Olympic final in Los Angeles. The next day, Falk and Strasser sat down in a room at the L'Ermitage Hotel in Beverly Hills and started negotiating Jordan's potential Nike deal. It turned out to be the most complicated contract Strasser had ever negotiated, especially because of the royalties. Jordan was to receive money for each pair of Air Jordan basketball shoes sold. He was to get a percentage of the net sales of all Jordan apparel and equipment and some shares of Nike stocks. Strasser and Falk came to an agreement on terms that day and shook hands on it at the Nike Olympic beach party. But the next obstacle was already ahead: convincing Jordan himself, who was actually preferring to stay with Adidas. Strasser never assumed that an athlete would go with Nike just because of the money. When the bidding started to get ridiculous, an athlete could make a decision on the basis of how he felt just as much as what he was paid. His plan was to win his heart, and the signature would follow. They brought Jordan and his parents to Oregon to hear Strasser's presentation. He talked about Nike's winning advertising campaigns and about building up Jordan's image. Moore showed off prototype apparel and a pair of shoes cut in the Chicago Bulls colors of red, white, and black.
Once I went through the presentation with Nike, they really made a grave effort of trying to, have my input on the shoes, design any shoes that I wanted to wear. But then I was very loyal. I went back to Adidas, the Adidas contact that I had, and said, look, this is the Nike contract. If you come anywhere close, I'll sign with you guys.
But Adidas didn't, and Jordan signed with Nike. When Strasser learned that a $1,000 fine had been levied against Jordan because his shoes did not match the uniform, Strasser told Jordan to wear the shoes anyway. Nike would cover the fines and use the rebellion for marketing.
On September 15th, Nike created a revolutionary new basketball shoe. On October 18th, the NBA threw them out of the game. Fortunately, the NBA can't stop you from wearing them. Air Jordans from Nike.
The link to Jordan, who became the greatest pro basketball player of all time, transformed Nike's fortunes. To date, the Jumpman logo is one of the strongest brands in the industry, with a reported over $3 billion in sales. Soon after Jordan disregarded NBA rules to debut his shoes, Nike was on track for global domination. In 1985, Knight told a magazine that a whole lot of people were responsible for the company's turnaround, but Rob is the MVP. After clashing with Phil Knight, Rob Strasser left the Swoosh in 1987, founded his own agency and later worked for Adidas. Unfortunately, years of hard work and a sometimes eccentric lifestyle damaged Strasser's health more and more. He had a heart attack and passed away in 1993 at age 46. Thousands of people attended his memorial service, many of them wearing Hawaiian shirts. His gravestone reads, "The way ahead is clear. Be honest about the battlefield. Throw out the old rules that don't make sense. Get out of the comfort zone. Go to the front of the fight and stay there. And most important, cut out all the bullshit."